did, and you're looking at me at the top of the world looking down.
Okay.
As you see on my lower left is Saudi Arabia down there, and the top of the world is the Arctic Circle. So it depends on what your view of the world is, right, Ron?
Exactly. It
That's
could
all
be
good.
anywhere at
Yep.
any time, in any situation. The only thing for sure is the only constant is change.
Constant is change, and boy, that's what's happened. Today's show is about politics as it impacts business. Ron Cooper and the Cooper culture. You are the star here. Mark Colo, thank you for being with us. I think there may be one or two others joining us, but they're not in the studio yet. So we're going to continue. I have a hard close at in 20 minutes to get ready for the Masterminds program. You're both invited to join that if you want to send the link if you don't already have it, starting at the top of the hour. Um, Ron, this is somewhat of an amazing turn of events, isn't it, with the politics?
Well, it is somewhat, and I'll put the somewhat into context of national elections, midterms. It's very common that there's a complete turnaround in the midterms, and that seems to have held true in this most recent election 2 days ago as we're recording this. I am on the East Coast, and there was a focus on Virginia, New Jersey, New York, not exclusively, but it was kind of a bellwether types of situation. And my perspective is, and I saw some statistics, and I've not done in-depth research, but the 18 to 25 year olds voted leftists, I'm going to use that term, at a very high rate. And based on the statistics I saw, and I'm just curious what the perspective is of some. Mamdani was elected in New York City. It appears that for reasons that he's going to totally change the economy, and undoubtedly some people are uh, let's say admire his stance that we're going to make bus transportation free. We're going to make other things free. I'll just say very briefly, without a long diatribe, that there's certainly, from my perspective, a role for government, but I am not one who will depend on the government to sustain me. I am the kind of person, and I'm very interested in other perspectives, entrepreneurs I think will largely do whatever we need to do. We will flow with the economy. We will adjust to the economy without blaming anything on the economy. We adjust to so that we are not dependent on the government for our welfare. So that's a little bit of my perspective, Ed and Mark, and I'm very interested in your perspectives.
Mark, what's your perspective?
Well, I'm not a big fan of government in general, just because there in the world there are so many governments that could be a little bit sharper in their ethics and the decisions they make and showing just general respect to one another. I mean, it's there's some excellent governments out there, and our government in the U.S. is just as good as any government out there. And I cringe when I see people trying to attack certain special issues and problems that maybe are uh, of worth to some, but I always like to think that journalism is general, and you're really trying to keep things fair and copacetic, I guess. But I'm just really I'm not a real big fan of big government and getting involved in most areas. Of course, I tip my glass a little bit toward healthcare, because healthcare is I'm a big fan of good healthcare, and trying to protect that healthcare for those that need it as they're growing older And as they're going to take this away of all of us, I mean, eventually we're all going to say our goodbyes. And but until then, I'd like to think that we've got some good people in office that can do something strong and effective and to help all of us. You see, I've got a bit of a tremor as I give this comment. It's called a resting tremor. That was my first open door to Parkinson's when I was diagnosed about 20 years ago. And it hasn't been quite the journey I would have expected. From the very beginning, it's been quite a different journey in many ways. But that's why I made my earlier comment that the only constant is change. And life does have changes. A dear friend of mine, Bruce, he was just called in for a problem he was having. He didn't know what it was. He had some internal bleeding, and it turns out now he's got pancreatic cancer.
Oh boy.
And you hear that kind of a comment, and you just say, "Oh gosh." And he's a good guy. I mean, he deserves every bit of help he can find. He's just a good guy. But that's a difficult road to walk, as is Parkinson's, as we all know.
Mark, thank you for the sharing that personal journey and what you're doing. As you know, my youngest brother Dave has Parkinson's, and he's dealing with that bravely. So my take, as I change the picture here from the top of the world to San Diego Harbor, is a sunny view. Um, I am not in favor of that New York election, as it turned out, but the choices weren't strong either. um, Terrible choices, in my view, as I sit here in southwesternmost U.S. on the Mexican border. So it's a perspective thing. Um, in Europe, on more than two occasions recently, the Gen Z people got together communicating without being detected about doing things en masse to show their stuff. And it's happened here now. So they are communicating, they meaning the Gen Zers who voted en masse, came out for the first time ever, I think, in an election that was discoverable, uh, tracked, I should say, for that category of voter. They communicated in an encrypted format because this was super organized, obviously, not just in New York, but in other places. In California here, Newsom is very strong, very popular, despite all the shenanigans that have gone on, but very popular guy, well liked, respected, and he rallied the flag uh, vis-a-vis Texas, and of course the president. So, and it won overwhelmingly to add seats or redistrict. Um, what Newsom did, interesting. I don't know whether he thought of it or somebody told him. He didn't just do what they did in Texas by taking over the rules and making it happen. We will now vote this way. We will redistrict that way. And you have no say about it, people. And everybody seemed to go along with it. Doesn't work that way in California. And Newsom was smart enough to figure that out. He says, we're going to get the vote, maybe, to get the okay to do this rather than dictate what we're going to do. That was real smart, and that's what did it. That's what worked. Doesn't mean Newsom's an angel, far from it, but this is a different place here for a lot of reasons. Here, meaning California. So the age bracket, if they have something to say and a way of how to change things, then they have to be organized and present their ideas, and the media is going to let them, that's for sure, and broadcast every word. And then the debate will really begin. Now, at the same time, my reading yesterday from Truth Social and other things that I follow, including CNN and Fox, is that President Trump was really upset and wanted to get Republicans in Congress, as of yesterday anyway, to shape up and stop the shutdown. Just get it done. They have the power to do that, and they're not doing it. And they're playing games internally. And so the president was upset, to say the least. Wouldn't you agree, Ron?
Oh, I would definitely agree.
Yeah, and he has a right to be, because I think what President Trump is doing internationally and with the economy is really great. I'm all in. I don't like the police state tactics that he's using. I don't like that at all. Although we have to find criminals and drug dealers and people who are causing problems across the country, whether or not they're directed by China or Iran or some other crazy thing. I can't comment on that, Ron. Can you?
Well, Ed, I like to stay with facts and, what is the source of our facts. I'm in the context of Gen Z and New York City and so forth. My perception is there are some who are short-term thinking oriented people, and in the context of New York, the prices are not attainable, or let's say affordability. That's one of the statements that was at the top of the list for concern. But then I'm going to be very interested in seeing if Mandami is able to reduce rent. Is he able to make free busing? Is he able to do what he's saying in the short term or the near term? Or I have seen statistics, and I can't validate this, that 760,000 or so people and some number of businesses are considering moving out of New York City because he is taken over as mayor. Now, we don't know if that'll happen. It's just a statistic that is out there. But my perception, Ed and Mark, is that we might be, there's a segment of our population that appears to be very short term, near term mindset to the maybe detriment of long term. But that's my perspective, and I'm very interested in seeing how um, how the economy shapes up and just how things work out. Are we going to have to go through a period of time, 10 years or so, uh, to determine if the current Gen Z thought and so forth is long term sustainable?
Yeah. Mark, do you want to comment before I ask another question of Ron?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm kind of biased toward California. I mean,
Yeah,
I've
you
lived
spent
I lived I
years there.
lived I've lived a lot of years in California.
Mm.
I was a real estate broker at one time, and I've sold in many homes. And I just love that. I love that industry, and I love that location. Look, there's can't find any more beautiful beaches than California. I mean, it's just beautiful. But the capital gains tax, that's another story. That's another debate. I mean, certainly, I mean, I choked when I wrote my capital gains tax upon leaving California for how much I had to give up from that rental property I owned. I had about 4 rental properties for quite a long time and watched them appreciate. But I had to just bite my tongue and just go through the process to move to where I'm finally retired and where the taxes are much more palatable. So I'm thankful for that. But and there are some beautiful places to see out there, beautiful scenery. So, but I'm still a little bit pro California in many ways, but it's but there's always change, and that principle of change it always comes back, and There's always some changes that you have to make that are sometimes surprising. Uh, I had one situation here in my own personal life where I lived in California for about probably 60 years of my life. And when I moved out and moved to St. George, where I live now, I moved from sea level for 60 years to elevation of about 4,000 feet. Now, you wouldn't think that'd be a big deal, you know, but the weather in St. George is a lot more rugged. It's a lot more difficult to adjust to. I suddenly started noticing nasal problems. You know, you think you're making the perfect decision, and I had many Excel spreadsheets I laid out, had them all. You know, this one's this, and this, tried to outweigh everything. And at the end of the day, there were some difficult subjects and topics that I wish I had looked more into and studied more into, but I didn't. So I just had to deal with then the changes that come because of that. So
That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
Um, I'm I have to get off at 10 before the hour to prepare for this other program. You're both welcome to join Philip Berry and a special guest author from Paris and others who are going to talk about branding, personal branding in this new economy that we're in. Um, so anyway, I think that there has to be a dialogue in Congress, and they have to get back to business. And the president is right. We've got to solve the problems. You can't play games anymore. This is too serious. Things are happening in the skies at the airport. Right down the street is San Diego International Airport, severely impacted. They just spent $3 billion renovating, and they're still going on the San Diego airport and enlarging it, modernizing it, and all all the flights over the weekend were delayed. I mean, it's just craziness, and it's happening in other markets as well. And they're saying that it's a direct result of the government shutdown and security concerns. Overcautious. Anyway, let's talk about negotiations. So, if this guy Mamdani, or whatever his name is, and Bernie Sanders, I was watching that last night on CNN. Um, it's a negotiating ploy. I don't know whether you saw that, but um, Sanders was real open. It's the same old story he's been saying for years. Um, there's got to be a negotiation. The Social Security Act was what set up during FDR in the depth of the Depression, and he did the same thing. That guy back then, he got rallied around all the people who were fearful or afraid or needed help, and it passed. We still got it. And at my age, I'm 80. I'm getting Social Security, and I'm thankful for it. So maybe this is a change coming that will overwhelm Congress in the midterms, and they'll vote new people in. And but that has to be voted on. It's not a dictatorship here, and never will be, hopefully. And it's a matter of voting. Ron, I'm sorry to um, need to end this in a few minutes, another 8 minutes or so. Um, but I want to give you the microphone, and your view is really important to me.
No, Ed, and I appreciate everything you're saying, and Mark as well. And yes, again, for me, I believe there is a role for government. I'm grateful we do have Social Security. Marty and I are not dependent on that for our living, it's available. But as entrepreneurs, and that's where my focus is for right now, we do what we need to do to prepare for the future. and we adjust to, but we're not victims of the economy. And so that requires some long term thinking. And I am the kind of person who believes that the role for government is to protect me by statutes, legislation, and so forth, but it's not for me to become dependent on programs that the government has. And Mark, I'm very empathetic to you, the healthcare and so forth. And yes, I do want to participate in programs that can provide for your and other people's health and welfare. But I do hope that we can set up programs to incentivize, inspire people to get jobs if they're capable of doing that. And so my perception is, and I know factually there are some people who know how to use the government system, suck off us taxpayers. I know that exists. And I am not an advocate that I want to keep those people continuing like that. I want to do everything I can to help them find a job. But if they feel they would rather use government funding because it's available through social programs and not have to work to earn their income, I have a problem with that. And I do want to help those people find long term employment, but that's all about capitalism. And it's the antithesis of what I am hearing socialism is about. But Ed, I know you've got other things you have to do, but those are just some of my thoughts that I know can be a much larger discussion, but I'm very interested in just the general trends of people and how they see things going.
I really appreciate your comments, and I 100% agree about the people who are not contributing but draining because of the poor politics of the past. I totally understand and agree with you and support that. Um,
You know, I'm
that
going to interject very quickly, Ed, and in the deference of time. But Mamdani made the statement that he favors immigrants, and he is an immigrant. I do favor legal immigration. It appears he is going to do everything he can to open the doors to have anybody come into New York City. He's apparently an advocate of open borders and so forth. I am not. I do believe the United States, as a sovereign nation, has ideals, we have values that we want to preserve. And so that can be a much larger, longer discussion, but that's where I am.
I'm on the border of Baja, Mexico, Tijuana. Where I'm sitting right here in downtown San Diego, 92101, is literally less than 10 miles north of the border. Every single business day, more than 100,000 from Mexico cross the border legally to work in the US. And then every day, every business day, they go back south across the border legally. And traffic stinks down anything connected with that region. And I 5 and I 805 is side by side, north south. They
Mhm.
are busy every business day because of the local traffic, of which I'm part of, as well as this international movement. Many of those cars that come into the US have California license plates, not Mexican license plates. Think about that. Legally purchased, fully compliant, apparently. So there is a way to solve this problem. I am against open borders and always have been. And I don't blame people who are fearful, for whatever the reason, to be really upset with anybody who wants open borders. Again, this show is not political, but it is impacting business, and that's why we're talking about it today. Thank you for your time, Mark. Thank you, Ron Cooper, thecooperculture.com. Check it out. Thank you for being on the
Ed, thank you
show.
so much. Great to be with you,
Thanks,
Mark.
guys. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Always good to see you.
To be continued for sure on Global
Okay.
TV Talk Show. Thank
Great.
you. Signing off.
All right.